So here we are almost a month after the start of free agency, and a lot has changed, especially with the team that we're talking about today. The Golden State Warriors came into the offseason with a lot of questions surrounding them, mainly about what the roster was going to look like when it was time for training camp. And after losing Klay Thompson to the Dallas Mavericks, it was clear that the team was going to change way more than we previously thought. But since then, we've seen reports about Golden State trying to trade for Utah Jazz forward Lauri Markkanen, who pretty much everyone agrees would be a massive upgrade to the roster and could be the key to giving the Warriors another chance at contention. But obviously that hasn't happened yet. And while they have made other moves during the offseason, this one would be the key to everything. But they're running out of time, because after August 6th, this will become much more difficult to pull off. Real quick, I know a lot of you guys watching this are not subscribed, so if you do fall into that category, please feel free to sub. It only takes a second and it really helps out a lot. And also be sure to leave a like. That also only takes a second and does impact how well the video performs, so that also helps out a lot. The Warriors are in a pretty interesting spot right now. After losing a franchise legend and missing out on another player that could have turned things around, Golden State is moving in a new direction, signing good support pieces in Buddy Hield, DeAnthony Melton, and Kyle Anderson. But it was always clear that this was likely in preparation for something bigger. Enter Lauri Markkanen into the mix, who has become one of the NBA's most desirable young players. Coming off a season in which he averaged 23 points, 8 rebounds, and shot 48% from the field overall and 40% from 3 on 8 attempts a game, which is good for any star caliber player. But the reason why he is so sought after right now is his contract, because he is still on this contract he signed back in 2021 when he was averaging nearly 10 less points than what he averages now. And so you're getting that level of play out of him, and you only have to pay him $18 million next season, which is his last year on that contract. Combine that with the fact that Utah is essentially going nowhere and would probably prefer to enter a rebuild, and you have possibly the most desirable player in the NBA right now. And at the top of the list of teams likely to acquire him is the Golden State Warriors. Throughout the offseason, the Jazz and Warriors have been in near constant conversations about what a Lauri to Golden State trade would look like. The issue that the Warriors are running into is that Jazz GM Danny Ainge knows what Lauri is worth, and the Warriors are doing whatever they can to not give up a bunch of young talent. We've been hearing about packages that have been offered, and one of them was Moses Moody, multiple first-round picks, and pick swaps in exchange for Lauri Markkanen. Yep, that was the whole offer. A player that you didn't even want to give minutes to last season because of the fact that you wanted to play Corey Joseph for half the season, and now you offer him as the only player Utah would get in return for Lauri Markkanen. It is worth noting that the main players the Warriors are offering right now are Jonathan Kuminga and Brandon Podziemski, and those are also the main players that Utah is asking for. But it is still worth talking about the Moses Moody offer to understand how serious the Warriors seem to be about this, at least at the time. But again, I won't scold them yet, as it is apparent that they've been trying to work something out for the last month. But the longer this drags on, the less likely you are to get him at all. That's because of the deadline. What do I mean by this? On August 6th, Lauri Markkanen will pretty much know for sure that whatever team he is on by that point will probably be where he's staying for the 2025 season, and possibly beyond. That's because August 6th is the deadline at which he can start discussing his new contract extension for the next however many years, most likely 5. And that $18 million salary is very likely going to turn into a $40 million salary, or perhaps even 50, which obviously would limit a lot of teams beyond that point from getting him, because now they would need way more cap space, which they likely don't have. Not only that, but August 6th is also exactly 6 months away from the 2025 trade deadline of February 6th, meaning that if he were to sign an extension with Utah on August 7th, he would be locked into Utah for the entire season, as that would make him ineligible to be traded before that February deadline. And this extremely cost-effective contract next season would be rotted away in Utah. And so the Warriors are very much on the clock to get a deal done before that August deadline. And even if you get him, what he gets from that extension is going to be a lot less important in the near future, because now you've traded for him and you have him for a season where you can still have a lot more flexibility with your cap space. Again, for a year. And so it would be way easier to give yourself himself one last chance at contention next season. And as of right now, as I said before, he seems to be the best available player to give the Warriors that chance at contention. Whether they'll get it done or not is still yet to be seen. So for now, let's just talk about why a lot of people are so adamant about the Warriors trading for this dude. It was apparent last season that the Warriors desperately needed more offensive help and a consistent second scoring option next to Stephen Curry, as if you guys remember, or if you didn't know, game 14 of the regular season was the first game in which someone other than Steph Curry scored over 20 points in the games where he played. It was painfully obvious by the turn of the new year that they just did not have adequate offensive talent around him. And as a result, last season was probably the most the Warriors have ever relied on him, not including 2021, which is insane considering he turned 36 years old. And I want to point out that even with the team looking as lost and disjointed as they looked last season, they still won 47 games, which is going to be the forgotten point here since they didn't make the playoffs. But adding a second star next to Steph to take some of that defensive pressure off of him, I think would be really good. In terms of what it would actually look like, Lauri pretty much fits in perfectly with the Warriors playstyle. The Steph Lauri pick and roll would be terrifying for teams, as he is really good at rolling to the basket, but also on the pick and pop. Lauri shot 41.4% on catch and shoot threes last year, which by the way is by far the majority of his 3-point attempts, accounting for 7.5 of his 8 attempts a game. That's number one. Number two, he is great at attacking downhill. Of course, being such a lethal shooter means that defenders have to play way up on him, which gives him those driving lanes. He shot 60% inside of 10 feet last season and 70% in the restricted area. How mobile he is at 7 feet tall is going to be another factor because of the off-ball actions that you can run for him. We saw a lot of this last season in Utah, and to be honest, I don't think I really need to explain much here. Like, this just looks like shades of Warriors basketball and what could be. Like, some of these catch and shoot plays the Warriors were running for Klay Thompson last year, and now they would be running these with a 7-footer. It's just insane. And even when he isn't providing the shooting, his ability to get downhill, which I already touched on, but also cut back door, would be really dangerous. I mean, just think about it. If the Warriors can consistently have guys like Trayce Jackson-Davis in double-digit points strictly off of dunks and layups, and Jonathan Kuminga having a near 20-point-per-game season despite not having a consistent jump shot, just imagine when they have a guy that can get looks at the rim like this while being able to shoot at a 40% clip from 3. And going back to the topic of size, that would be another really big factor, pun intended, in trading for him. Since the Jazz have made it clear that they would prefer B-Pods over Kuminga, the Warriors would likely retain wing depth in any potential deal, and they will have completely restructured their roster, moving away from the guard-heavy lineups of last season, which obviously would be a huge improvement defensively. Now, Lauri isn't the greatest defender, and defense is not what comes to mind when making this deal, but I imagine that he would improve given the level of defensive talent that the Warriors have around him in Draymond Green, Andrew Wiggins, DeAnthony Melton, GP2 when he's there, Kyle Anderson, and Trayce Jackson-Davis. So it very well could be a similar situation to Andrew Wiggins, where he takes that leap defensively, now having a great team around him for the first time in his career. But of course, that's probably the biggest what if, as I wouldn't expect that type of leap to happen in the span of one season, or really half a season when you think about it. If you remember, Andrew Wiggins' leap on defense took about a season and a half. They traded for him in the middle of the 2020 season, and we saw that defensive leap at the start of the 2021 season. So that's just something to think about. But overall, as I've been saying throughout the video, this might be the last chance that you ever get to compete with Steph Curry on the roster. And that's just the reality of the situation. He is turning 37 next season. Draymond is going to be 35. Klay Thompson is in Texas. Kevon Looney looks 43 when he's playing. Next season very well could be your last chance in the Steph Curry era, which, to be completely honest, feels absolutely insane to say, considering that I've been a fan of this team since Steph was 25. But again, that's just reality. To sum it all up, the Warriors are on the clock. They have 2 weeks to get this deal done, and if not, that's probably it. And I'm sure they know that. So we'll see what happens. But with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you're new, hit the bell to be notified when I upload, comment down below what you want to see next, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.